I'm Tyler Suiters, and you're watching Clean Skies News. The Department of Justice says it is now investigating potential civil and criminal cases in the Gulf of Mexico oil spill. Joining us now to sort through the details in the process is Richard Stoll. He is with the environmental practice at Foley and Lardner here in Washington, and also a former attorney with EPA. And Dick, it's good to have you back with us today.
Thank you, Tyler.
First step, let's talk about some of your clients and whom you're representing right now.
Well, my firm and I have a corporate client base, and for the environmental area, I represent manufacturing clients in different manufacturing type of industries. A lot of Portland cement manufacturing, hazardous waste treatment, and just other major manufacturing industries and facilities that are affected by EPA's regulations.
Okay, that said, let's dive right in. You have EPA, Homeland Security, Interior, all of these groups on the case. Is it in some senses more difficult to bring this case together and just sort out who's responsible for what rather than actually taking this forward in the courtroom?
If you're talking now, Tyler, about going for liabilities.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
If you're talking about the Justice Department, again, going for liabilities, the fact that there's different agencies involved in different parts of the response, that's normal. I mean, that happens all the time, particularly when we're talking about releases of oil. You almost always have a situation where you've got Coast Guard, which is now under Homeland Security, and you've got EPA involved in sometimes NOAA and sometimes other agencies, and sometimes OSHA when you have employees hurt or killed like you did here. But the Justice Department represents all of those agencies. So the Justice Department is the one place where there is coordination, and where when they start talking about going and bringing counts under whichever these statutes, and they can bring counts under several of these statutes because again there's a lot of overlap here. The Justice Department is the one place where there can be coordination in such an effort, and that's what's going on right now.
Oil in the water seems to be the most damning evidence of what's going on right now, but no one wants to forget, and the President himself mentioned this just the other day, the fact that 11 people died in this industrial accident. That has to be a very strong criminal case for the Justice Department to pursue.
Yes, I mean, the fact that there were 11 people killed, very unfortunate, that almost makes it automatic that you know they're thinking criminal. They just almost have to be thinking criminal. You can go on EPA's website, it's a very good website, and there's a criminal enforcement page. And you start tracking through the last few years, and you see anytime there's a death, you're going to start seeing some notes about criminal prosecutions, pleas, settlements, and so forth. And I might say with some pretty major oil companies. So you'll see in regard to oil pollution, so you'll see that. So, and again, that gets OSHA involved too, because you've got health and safety, worker health and safety gets OSHA involved.
What about the monetary retribution? That is the potential cap on economic damages, the civil case as well. You were telling me earlier, Dick, that there are holes to be punched in that cap regarding what is current federal law, although there's a huge effort underway on both sides of Congress to change that right now.
That's right. The theory is because oil companies were paying into a trust fund, this is sort of a tit for tat. Okay, if we pay into this trust fund, you're going to tax us. Okay, in exchange for this tax and this fund, we'll have a cap. That was the idea. Okay, but the cap, so the cap goes to things like natural resources damages, other kinds of damages that could be claimed for loss of property, loss of value, loss of profits, and all that kind of stuff.
The fishing fleet, the
yes,
shrimpers?
Yes,
okay.
All that kind of stuff. But if anybody goes in and can show that BP or the other people involved are somehow willfully negligent or somehow violated any other law or something like that, then all of a sudden the cap does not apply. Also, it doesn't apply to state-type tort actions, and there's plenty of that going on already. So the fact is that whatever that cap means, there are definitely exceptions for willful negligence and violations of any other laws. And just think about it a minute. If you have any judge trying to interpret what those exceptions mean in this context, in the context of the worst environmental disaster in the history of the United States, you got to wonder. I think most people I know don't think that cap is very meaningful right now.
Well, Dick, let's move in the final question from the judge to the jury itself, and say this does reach a jury trial. How can anyone help but have been exposed to what they've seen in the video and the dramatic scenes from the Gulf? What happens to BP if this does go to a jury?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I guess for the whole system here, when you say if it does go to a jury, I think what could happen, and look what happened after Exxon, and Exxon wasn't quite as big a deal.
20 years later.
20 years later, there are going to be many, many, many different legal actions here. I mean, many. There are going to be federal enforcement for penalties. There may be federal criminal. There may be all sorts of state actions brought by state attorneys general. There may be all sorts of tort actions brought by anybody who claims injury, and there's tort lawyers down there like, you know, flies now right now. So I mean, so there could be many trials and many juries. Now again, perhaps if there's a criminal trial and the federal government is prosecuting, just like the judge is naturally, I think, going to be tending to interpret some of these statutory exemptions, having seen all this damage in a particularly perhaps a liberal way. Right. I think juries are obviously going to be sympathetic to the government's claims here. When you watch Brian Williams every night, and it's the first 15 minutes is nothing but the damage down there.
It is clear a long legal road lies ahead. And helping us sort this out is Richard Stoll, leading the environmental practice at Foley & Lardner and a former attorney with EPA. And Dick, it's always good to have you with us.
Thank you, Tyler.
All right, and thank you as well for joining us. I'm Tyler Suiters, and you're watching Clean Skies News.